HBCU football may be about to lose one of their most reliable financial resources, and the only ones you can blame are the College Football Playoff Committee. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current site expert at Who Dat Dish and contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make it Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off every day does not mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Everydayers, please remember, we are dropping down to 3 episodes a week this summer. It's summertime. We're going to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday until we get back into the groove of things in either mid-August or the beginning of August. Just wanted to make sure you had that reminder. But today's episode, we're going to recap, cap off with Bethune-Cookman's baseball heartbreaker. This was a very heartbreaking loss in both the first and second matchups of the Tallahassee Regional. The SWAC MEAC Challenge is going to remain on ABC, showing the heightened level of importance, or the sustained level of importance, I should say, around this event. However, I want to kick off with something that is definitely going to shake HBCU football, and we should be looking at whether or not this ends up being the case. I want to first give a shout out to Kyle T. Mosley, who does phenomenal work at HBCU Legends, part of Sports Illustrated. If you have not checked that out, please do. But he brought up a great point about how the College Football Committee and how their stressing strength of schedule could have a drastic impact on HBCUs and their ability to get money games. As we know, money games are often a huge resource for HBCUs. I think Grambling's going up to Ohio State this year for, I think, $1 million. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's $1 million. So there is a big financial component that comes with playing these bigger schools. If that stops happening, there'll be other ways to get money, but this was one of the more reliable and one of the most consistent ways that you had a financial injection into the HBCU football programs. I want to say this. When I say I think there will be less money games, this isn't a declaration. This isn't a hope of what I think is going to happen or what I desire to happen. This is kind of just a prediction. This is kind of a warning. I would say even more so a warning than a prediction. Because when you look at what Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, said, you have to be on alert that this could impact HBCUs. This is a quote that I want to bring up and hone in on. And I quote, "It's the depth of analysis we're looking at. We had a learning session in September at the college football playoff about the strength of schedule, and strength of schedule isn't everything, but it is an important factor. I remember very clearly one of the messages was if you play the top ranked team and the 130th ranked team, those two games average out to 65 and a half. If you play 65 and 66, they average out to 65 and a half. So the advisor said just as well playing 65 and 66. I'm going to be honest with you. I have a huge problem with this quote, not because I don't believe him, not because I think he's, exaggerating. I have a problem with the fact that I do believe Greg Sankey's quote. I do believe that's how the committee is looking at it. Let's be very clear. In Darrion's book, playing the top-ranked team and playing 130 in back-to-back weeks versus playing 65 and 66 is not the same thing. I understand mathematically, if you add them up and you do basic division. I went to elementary school. So I do understand how that is the same technically. But if I play the top ranked team in the country and I play 130, that 130 is an easy game. Let's assume that 65, 66 is probably also an easy game. Not as easy, but an easy game. Those are not the same. Top ranked, huge risk. Here we go. Basically, what they're saying is, and this is why I don't agree. This is what I'm saying. If you play an extremely tough game, you play an extremely easy game, it equals out to two slightly easy games. That's not the truth, because that one loss is going to carry a whole lot more weight than that zero, right? Like that one loss is going to carry so much weight if I lose to the top ranked team. Now, here's my problem, and this is where it comes to impact HBCUs. If you're telling me, if Greg Sankey is telling me that the advisor told him, you play 1 in 130, you might as well play 65 and 66. 130 is still an FBS team. 130 is still an FBS team. If that is knocking down your strength of schedule, what is playing an FCS team going to do? And if these commissioners feel any way like Sankey does, he clearly doesn't want his teams, his top teams specifically, playing any bottom level FBS schools. So he's not going to say, let's keep playing HBCUs. He's not going to do that. So now the question becomes, is it just the SEC? Greg Sankey is telling you, the advisors are saying, if you play a top team and a bottom of the barrel team on the FBS level, you might as well just play two middle of the pack teams. So what about if I play a top team on the FBS level in an FCS school? How much does that bring down my strength of schedule? I don't think Sankey's the only commissioner thinking this. I don't think Sankey's the only commissioner who is going to start having schools avoid playing the bottom of the barrel in the G5. And if he's not playing the bottom of the barrel of the G5, that means he's probably going to avoid playing against FCS schools. It's not going to be the eradication of money games. You're still going to have schools who play HBCUs. Let's be very clear. I don't want you to think I'm exaggerating or going too far. I do not believe it's going to be zero money games moving forward, but I do think you're going to see less of them because Greg Sankey is already telling you strength of schedule isn't everything, but it is an important factor. And I can guarantee you, these teams, these schools, and these conference commissioners want to be in the college football playoffs. At the end of the day, that is what it is. Mathematically, that little equation makes perfect sense. Common sense, not really. Doesn't really make common sense in my book. So my first thought was, okay, maybe they'll play more G5 teams. Negative. Because G5 teams have even less room for error. So G5 schools, they need to be playing good strength of schedules because it's only one spot for them. And if they both go undefeated and one school has an HBCU on their resume and the other one doesn't, the one that doesn't have an HBCU is going to be the one that gets the boost. They're going to be the one who gets the spot because you only get one slot. It's only one Boise State out there. It's only one Boise State. You're not going to get Boise State and Central Florida. You're not going to get Boise State and I'm trying to think of another Cinderella team we've seen. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but you're going to get one G5. One G5. That's it. And speaking of HBCUs not being included, let's talk about how they're not included in EA College Football 26 for the second year in a row as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. I think we've all been there where we realize after the fact that we've been spending way more than we felt like we were. Some are a little bit more dangerous than others. Hopefully you haven't got all the way down. But maybe if you have, you understand the value of an app like Monarch Money. I can tell you that I definitely understand because it's not just a way to budget. It's not just a way to keep track. It is legitimately a financial command center that allows you to keep track of multiple accounts. Maybe you and your partner forget just being down bad. Maybe you and your partner are trying to manage money together. Monarch Money makes that so much easier to do. That is the only place that I would want to make sure I'm tracking all of my finances. And I don't have to get all of these multiple apps. So Monarch Money is definitely for me. If I were you, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day. Every day for your second listen, check out Locked On NBA because the finals are 3 days away, 4 days away. On Thursday, we have game one versus Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Tyrese Halliburton. Ooh, we can't wait for this. Thunder versus Pacers, game one. But I'll tell you what, game one of the HBCU season will be broadcast on national television for the world to see on the American Broadcasting Channel. Yes, the MEAC-SWAC Challenge is retaining their spot on ABC. And I discussed the Orange Blossom Classic, and I discussed how I had a little bit of, would irritation be the right way to describe that? Disappointment, possibly. I think it's a mixture of irritation, disappointment, and just acknowledgement, acceptance almost that, all right, the OBC isn't being treated like a big time event. Now we have to understand that Disney does own ESPN and they own ABC. So this is under the same parent company. When I speak about how one is treated and how the other is treated, I think that it's important to make that connection. I don't like the Orange Blossom Classic being bumped down from ESPN2 to ESPNU. I don't think that it is good for the event. I don't like the timing of the event being moved to Saturday, all in all, because that is a network decision. I can't guarantee it 100%, but I strongly feel that way. I'm convicted in that belief. When you go from ESPNU to ESPN2 to ESPNU, you are knocking down the ceiling of what that game can reach. This game, the MEAC-SWAC Challenge, is being kept on ABC, which I think has the highest ceiling of all of the networks by Disney. I think it has a higher ceiling than ESPN because you just have more people who have ABC. More cable providers have that on their base plan. That is something that people can get with antenna. Like, you can look at ABC pretty much as long as you have a TV. So the ceiling is much higher on the ABC channel. I hate when people do that. When they say like the last word in the abbreviation again, like the C stands for channel. It's not the ABC channel. It's ABC. If anything, it's the channel of ABC, I guess. And that even sounds terrible. But neither here nor there. I feel like it's important to not only talk about the things that frustrate us, which is moving from ESPN2 to ESPNU for the OBC. I also want to talk about the things that are big deals, the things that we should celebrate. And sometimes maintaining the maintenance of your status is the right thing to celebrate because you can't go up. And I think that looking at this MEAC-SWAC Challenge, you have John Grant who says this is the 20th anniversary of the MEAC-SWAC Challenge. We expect this to be a can't-miss clash of titans with both football teams and marching bands. It'll be the marching music machine versus the human jukebox, who are fresh off its Super Bowl 54 performance in New Orleans. Now, great hype up, Mr. Grant. Great hype up there. Because I do think that the culture always has to be something that is involved. It is what sets HBCUs apart. Oh man, I said there's no inclusion. I had my days wrong. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. On Wednesday, we'll be talking about the lack of inclusion in EA College Football 26. But today we're talking about the MEAC-SWAC Challenge. My fault for the confusion. I sincerely apologize. But the culture always has to be a part of what we discuss because that is what sets HBCU football apart. That is what makes us special. That is what makes us such a unique, just gravitational force as a sport, because you can watch football everywhere, and it's not necessarily, how do I want to say this? It's not necessarily different when you go to different places. The level of play is different, but it's still a very similar product. And if those two teams are on equal footing, you can get a quality game. But the halftime show, the culture, the band, the things that go on during the game, it is different. It's one of the few things, and we'll talk about that on Wednesday when we do talk about the HBCU lack of inclusion. But anyway, the point is, this event is going to stay on ABC as long as it's very successful. And last year, it was very successful. We can look at it from a commercial standpoint, or we can look at it from a pure viewer experience standpoint. So I'll take the views and I'll take the consumer first. This was 1.3 million views last year, which made it the largest television audience ever for the MEAC-SWAC Challenge. There's never been one that was higher than 1.3. And according to ESPN Events, it was better by 27%. They had 27% more viewers than the 2010 MEAC-SWAC challenge, which I want to bring up right now. If you broke a record that was 2 years old, that's great. If you broke a record that was the year before it, that's great. But the fact that this is the highest viewed game since 2010 says a lot to me, because it's one thing if records just keep getting broken every single year. That is a great sign of growth. That is a great sign of growth if in 2017 and 2018 and 2019, and maybe you miss a year in 2020, and then you go to 2021 and in 2023 and now 24. Each time you're just leveling up and you keep getting more more viewers. That is a sign of growth. That is a sign of constant increase. And I think that right there is a great thing. But when you're talking about Norfolk State versus FAMU 2024 being the highest viewed game since 2010, that is a spike that I want to see if you're able to continue. That can show the beginning of a growth. That can show a one-time spike in growth. And I want to see what it's going to be, because at the end of the day, that was a phenomenal game. Regardless of if it's a one-time spike or it's consistent in views, the company is going to invest in that. The company is going to say, you know what? That was a game that a lot of people watched in 2024. Let's keep it on this channel in 2025. Number one. And then the second thing, as far as just product on the field, like, because me, even right there, talking about that was uncomfortable. I'm going to be honest with you. Talking about how many views something gets, it's uncomfortable for me because I don't care for real. I want visibility, but talking about 27% increase, that's not my cup of tea. I do like talking about the channels and how it's being treated and the respect that I feel like it's getting, which is what the main part of this is for me. That's what the conversation around the Orange Blossom Classic is for me. I understand that the viewers on the television side is important. Dr. McClellan said, look, you can sell out every time, but the TV is where you're going to get your money at. So I do understand the importance of this event being watched on TV, but actually getting here and breaking down viewership, I'm going to do it, but it's not my favorite thing. I prefer the eye test. I prefer, was it a good game? And in my opinion, the fact that it was a great game is what led to the high views. It had explosive plays. It came down to the wire. It had a comeback. You just overall, it was a game that made you say, I would like to watch more of this. And I think that's what we're looking for as HBCU media, as HBCU fans, as HBCU players, coaches, investors. We want the sport to grow. We want the realm of HBCU athletics to grow. And the way that happens is people have to flick on their TV and say, I'd watch that again. That's really what needs to happen. Because that's why I'm sometimes with these random events on ESPN Ocho. You just be watching, you're like, oh man, that was cool. I'd watch that again. And then sometimes you don't. Like I watched the ESPN chat be throwing stuff on. I seen a pillow fighting competition. It was funny. I laughed, but I'm not going to watch pillow fighting again. Like that wasn't, if I'm flipping through the guide and it says pillow fighting, I'm not saying, ooh, let me click. I'm not doing that. But the hope is if you see HBCU football, and then maybe it's just another FAMU game, or maybe it's another Norfolk State game, or maybe it's the MEAC-SWAC challenge again. You say, oh, that's on again. That was a great game last year. I need to click back on. Norfolk State versus FAMU achieved that goal. At the end of the day, that is what they did. It was a great game that had explosive plays, came back. They had good brands. You had all of it. So now North Carolina Central versus Southern gets to come in and they get to reap the benefits of that. They get to come in and maybe the people who said, I'm going to make sure I check that out next year. It's week 0. There's not many games on anyway. I'm going to go ahead and check that out when it happens again. They get that. Meanwhile, the OBC, as much as I do like Alabama State, as much as I do like North Carolina Central, Alabama State had really bad quarterback usage in that game. And I feel like that was kind of the defining trait. And it was bad play at times from Alabama State's quarterbacks. So I don't think that necessarily you click on that and you watch both sides. You're like, oh, I got to. It wasn't the most appealing game. I enjoyed it personally. I thought that I thought my biggest complaint was Andrew Body should have played the whole game. That was probably my biggest complaint. But in general, even when the first quarterback started, whose name I can't remember right now, I thought that it was a solid game. I was entertained, but I could imagine somebody not feeling the same way as I could. I couldn't imagine that when it came to FAMU versus Norfolk State. And that's how you retain an ABC spot. By being undeniable, by being great, by having more viewers than you've had ever in the course of that event that's been around for 2 decades. That's how you keep on ABC. Hopefully the Orange Blossom Classic with FAMU being back involved, because that is a big fan base. And I do think they had a big part of the 1.3 million viewers because they are such a marketable base. I'm hoping that you can see it rise back up. That is my hope and desire, because the OBC is a great event. FAMU is a wonderful team as far as just branding and fan goes, because teams change year by year. And I feel the same way about Howard. So I'm hoping that they can rise this up and we can get this back to ESPN2. But we're not just covering the bad, we're covering the good. That was a terrible transition into some actual really bad. I'm sorry. We are also going to cover the bad, which is the heartbreak that is Bethune-Cookman baseball, as we continue with Locked On HBCU. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. Bethune-Cookman baseball season came to a close with 2 real, I'm not going to say heartbreaking victories. Heartbreaking losses in the first one, but that second game is 100% a heartbreaking loss. The reason I don't say Florida State is a heartbreaking loss solely because you kind of knew you were going to lose, or you felt like you were going to lose. You were massive underdogs. That being said, a lot of 1v4s are big gaps. This one wasn't. It ended up being a 6-2 loss for Bethune-Cookman, which is respectable. I don't really believe in moral victories, but it was a respectable loss. I might start saying that more than moral victories. A respectable loss. Let me know what you think. But it was, the thing is, there was a long rain delay. And the heartbreak, let me put air quotes on that, the heartbreak could come in the fact that you thought you were going to heat up. I don't think that the rain delay changed much. I don't think the rain delay all of a sudden gave Bethune-Cookman or put Bethune-Cookman at this huge disadvantage. I believe that they were underdogs going in. They looked like underdogs through most of the game. That included before and after the break. You had 2.5 innings before the break. Bethune-Cookman allowed 2 runs in those first 2 innings. In the bottom of the first, they allowed a run. In the bottom of the second, they allowed a run. Now you get to the bottom of the third, you get a pitch out, and now you're on delay. So when you come back to the bottom of the third, after the delay, Florida State puts up 3 runs in the third. Am I supposed to believe that all of a sudden that wouldn't have happened if you didn't have to go out for a break because of rain? I can't. It was a tie ball game at that point, and then Florida State comes in and rattles off 3 runs in the third inning. That got all the space they needed. The one thing you could say is right before the break, Bethune-Cookman had 2 runs in the top of the third. And if you didn't have a long delay, maybe the bats would have heated up. That's the only thing you can point to. And even that is just so speculative. That's so speculative. It's not even, it's not something that I'm going to point my finger to. But it's the only thing you could if you wanted to blame the rain for anything. If you wanted to blame the rain for changing anything, it would be the fact that you feel like, oh, I was just about to heat up. I was about to. Like, that's the only thing you could say. But yeah. And then Florida State added 1 more in the 8th for good measure. But after that 3 runs, it was over. They didn't allow another run out of Bethune-Cookman. But that Northeastern game was just crushing. And I'm going to tell you why. It was back and forth, a really good game. It was low scoring. It was 4-3. So it was only a one run loss. So that's the first reason it was very crushing and disappointing. But the second aspect of it is that Andre Martinez had a chance to win the game, and he ended up striking out. So it's 2-2 going into the 9th inning. In the top of the 9th, Northeastern has two runs. So now it's 4-2. Bethune-Cookman gets one more run on the board. And now you got a runner at third and a runner at second. So you got two in scoring position with Andre Martinez at bat. And you just know Bethune-Cookman faithful are sitting there thinking about what happened last time the game was on the line and Andre Martinez was up to bat. If you don't know, maybe you just need a quick reminder. Maybe you need a quick refresher. And that is okay because I'm here to provide it for you. Last time Andre Martinez was at bat with runners on base, and Bethune-Cookman needed him to make this in order to win the game. Just they needed him in order to push it to extra innings. It was this exact scenario with a different score against FAMU. This time, however, it was a strikeout. Last team from Tallahassee, Andre Martinez knocked it out the park. I'm talking about Mark Jackson status. Knocked it out the park. This time against a team from Tallahassee, strikeout. And to me, putting this star player, your guy, your top guy, in the same exact scenario with the same exact stakes, all you have to do is change from SWAC tournament to still being in the NCAA tournament. But the same stakes, the same position, different score. You're probably feeling really confident about his odds. He had an RBI earlier in the game, so you know he's solid. You know he's up to bat. You know that he's up to par. And this time it just doesn't work. And it's a strikeout to end your season. That's a tough pill to swallow. That's very crushing. Now, it's almost as crushing as me thinking I was going to talk about EA college football on a Monday. Instead, we'll talk about it on a Wednesday. I'll be back and we'll be discussing that on Wednesday's episode of Locked on HBCU, amongst some other things. We're back to 3 days a week during the summer, y'all. So I appreciate you for rocking with me. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.